Race 3 of the BMW IBSF two-man bobsleigh World Cup. We're at Altenberg in Saxony in the southeast corner of Germany, about 10 miles from the border with the Czech Republic. It's a wet and miserable evening. The wind and the rain have been blowing in since darkness as we got into the first of our two heats in the two-man bobsleigh race. Everybody, I'm Martin Haven, alongside Ms. Anne van Nieuwenhuis of Belgium, who raced in the women's encounter earlier. And what a race we've got on our hands.
Exactly. We just saw the images of Johannes Lochner tipping over out of curve 12. Had a great run until that point, but just didn't control it enough. In first place, we have Francesco Friedrich, who started with a great start for 5:22. Controlled it nicely, but just didn't carry the speed enough. And he's only 800ths off the lead. In second place, we have Oscar Skiebermanis, who also had a great start. Carried the speed along the track, didn't have any major mistakes. A little bit of a skid there, and he's in second place, very close. And in the lead so far is our winner of last year, Olympic champion Justin Cripps with Cam Stones, who has his birthday today, so he might give himself a big birthday present. Really nice run of Cripps, controlling it, but just letting it run where it should run. And he's in the lead by 700ths.
Well, Cripps has not raced in the World Cup this year, but of the 7 starts he and Cam Stones have had in North America and Europa Cup racing, they've won 5 of them and been second in the other 2. He leads by 700ths from Oscar Skiebermanis, who's 100th ahead of the joint Olympic champion Francesco Friedrich. Homeboy Nico Walter in 1100ths back, also in medal contention. And behind them, basically everybody else down to about 14th is battling to be in the top half dozen places. Some real standout performances from the likes of Roman Heinrich, Maxim Anjanov, and Alexander Bradikin as well, the young Russian. And there is Francesco Friedrich with Torsten Margis limbering up in the rainy car park. It's all the glamour, isn't it? You know, this weather is just about as vile as it could be.
They're soaking wet from the first run, their warm-up from the first run, and now they have to do it again.
Yeah, most of the time you're wearing these clothes to keep warm. Today, it's just to keep the rain off. It's been sheeting down. Rain through the women's race. The first heat was wet, the second heat was dry. We thought, okay, the rain's gone. No, came back with a vengeance for the men's encounter. So the track is here always fast and hard in race trim, but unfortunately, even the Ice Meister Ralph and his crew can't keep the rain off it today. So it is slower than we would have hoped for. However, it does mean, as in the women's race, we have got a titanic battle for victory, and we've got massively tight action behind. Justin Olsen of the 19 sleds who'll go again because Lochner didn't cross the finish line, so won't get a second run. He'll be first off. Cody Basque and Benny Meyer both sitting in at the start. And as we get towards the business end, Nico Walter, Francesco Friedrich, Oscar Skiebermanis and Justin Cripps are sure to be battling for the medals.
It might get a little colder by now, so maybe the rain turns into snow. That's what the forecast predicted, but so far it's still just raining.
Justin Olsen and Adrian Adams, first off of 19 sleds, race 3 of the BMW IBSF two-man bobsleigh World Cup. And after the 12th fastest start, a disappointing first heat for Olsen saw him finish last of the competitors, a long way adrift. Let's see if he can tidy up his act.
5:44. Comes around curve 1 and again a tiny tap before going into curve 2 like he did in the first run. Taps again before going into curve 4, but controls it. Slides a little bit sideways off curve 4 going into curve 5. But I think he's definitely looking forward and catching these guys who are in front of him.
Well, no major dramas so far, but it was hardly a catalogue of disasters in the first run either, but all the little extra steers add up to a loss of time.
That's very unstable out of the Kreisel and going really late into curve 13, which means he had to make a big steer to control it again.
Kind of got away with that by the skin of his teeth. He's not done yet. 2 corners remain. Big height in the penultimate turn across the line. So down and done. 57.65. Well, it was quicker than his first heat, but it is still the second slowest run that we've seen so far. Now, the track may not have got quicker. It got pretty much 6/10ths quicker in the second heat of the women's race because the rain had stopped. And actually, the track was then ice rather than water. And it seems bobsleds slide better on ice than on water.
We'll have to see the next sleds if they go faster or not. It's a little bit colder, I think, by now, so it should be speeding up a bit. And here you can see he gets a little bit of height as well in 12, but takes it off and then taps right on the hard on the right side, and then goes really late into 13, shooting up, and then you have to steer really hard to bring it down.
Well, Olsen on the right, Adrian Adams on the left, smiling a little bit the smile of somebody who's got away with that. Next up, Cody Basque of the USA. So we'll have a US 1-2 after this. Cody Basque sitting in like the next man will do, Benny Meyer. Already injured, doesn't want to exacerbate it. And that means that there's getting on for 500 kilos of a deadlift for Hakim Abdul Sabur, his brakeman, to try and grunt away from the line. Look at his head down and digging in deep. First start 578, second start 577. Those calves and thighs will be burning.
That's an impressive start, and I'm really interested to see what he will do in the foreman tomorrow if he has 3 guys pushing him. He has a better shot of doing well in the race.
Well, let's see
Clean
what
looking line so far.
Cody finished 18th in last year's race and 18th after the first heat here.
He's still in the red, obviously, because of the start deficit, but he's having great speeds.
Ooh,
really
big
high
height.
in Kreisel and holds it off, just avoids the inside wall going off.
Slender lead over Olsen, but 3 kilometers an hour better speed. The two BMW sleds couldn't be more different in terms of top speed down at the bottom. Cody's is absolutely flying. He's gone from 2100s back to 6900s up. I mean, that's a massive difference.
And that considering his mistake out of Kreisel.
Okay, so his first run, a 57.6. His second, a 57.09. So like the women's race, the rain has stopped. It does look as though the track might be a good half-second quicker.
I think because of the cold, we might see that everyone's going quicker in the second one. You see him waving, second wave gets high, but he's getting high a little early in the third wave, coming down already and just avoiding the inside wall. A little bit too much pressure coming out of curve 14, a little bit sideways, but corrects it over the crests going into 15.
Yeah, didn't have to steer, did he? Let it come back straight, and that's the experience. You feel that the sled is either coming back or it's not. Matthijs Benisch there in the blue jackets that you'll see next year for the World Championships. He's the track manager, with my colleague Ron Ringuth down there at the bottom entertaining the crowd, or tweeting, which is his normal business. Benny Meyer of Austria, third of our 19 sleds. And again, Kilian Walch, the brakeman, having to do all the heavy lifting here. Benny Meyer with a torn hamstring. Got away with a very near call in training, almost rolled it. 593.
But controls curve 1 really well, going straight to curve 3. Nice transition, 3 to 4. And comes out with pressure to avoid the tap on the left side going into 5. A little bit of a tap going into curve 7. And a nice high free line in curve 9. He's a little bit down on speed compared to Basque, so I don't know if he can bring it back. And that's a very nice exit of Kreisel. But a little bit of a sideways skid there out of curve 12.
Yeah, this is a pretty untidy run compared to Cody's. Yeah.
Late in 15, late in 16, shooting up really high to the roof.
Yikes. 57.59, half a second slower exactly than Cody Basque in that heat, so he drops behind into second place. Cody Basque moves up 1, will finish no worse than 17th. And that will be his career high on this track in 2-man.
He's shaking his head, not happy with that run.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's still smiling.
Just a little skid, tapping and skidding again, going really late into curve 15, getting the height there, and then falling off, going late into curve 16 and going really high to the roof. And then dropping down, but controlling it again in curve 17.
Well, all the mistakes that you can make at the bottom were there to see. Brakeman winding up about his inability to even lift the sled. Next up are our World Cup rookies, Ivan Linuchev and Denis Korotkov of Russia. They've been racing together now into their third season, started in Europa Cup, and this is their first ever appearance on a World Cup stage.
5:44, just a little bit faster than they did on the first heat. Nice heat through curve 1 and 2. Going middle to curve 3. No tap there, nice control in 4. A little bit too early onto 5, but nothing major.
Half a second in hand over current leader Cody Bascu from the first heat, and if they don't add another half second to that, I should be very surprised. He'll probably be a little less nervous than he was in the first heat.
It's looking nice so far, except for his mistake in curve 6.
1:11.8 kilometres an hour. Bascu had 1:13, and here Bascu had 1:13 as well. So Russian sled losing a bit of speed. Gaps come down from 73 to 48 hundredths.
The down part of the track is looking really nice. So you got it back.
57.0, that is nearly a tenth, 1100 slower than Benny Meyer came down, but he has the lead from Cody Bascu with Benny Meyer in third.
And that just puts in perspective how good a run Cody Bascu actually had.
Yeah, Cody Bascu only 900 slower despite starting 3,300 slower at the top.
Caught high in 6 and then slides off, hits the wall, goes into a skid going to curve 7. That's a speed kill.
Yeah, backing it in doesn't work when you're trying to speed up, only when you're slowing down. Brad Hall of Great Britain with Nick Gleeson behind him. Third fastest start, a searing 5:24. And looks as though they're using a different sled here than we saw last time out. So Brad Hall, 28 years old, from Chichester, now lives in Crawley, West Sussex. Started as a brakeman in 2012, started driving 3 seasons ago. Nick Gleeson, Parachute Regiment soldier, just 22 years old. Gleeson with a really ugly ice burn on one of his shoulders from a crash a couple of seasons ago.
And a matching tattoo.
Yeah. 5:23 getaway, even quicker than their first heat, but it was a catalogue of woes for the British driver in the first run.
A little bit high on curve 3, but avoids the tap going into 4. A little bit too soon on curve 7, because he was high in curve 6.
It is neater and tidier than his first heat. Accelerating away now from Linuchev.
Very controlled line through the Kreisel. Controls it nicely to 11 and 12 as well.
Better. 2 of these would have seen him a lot further up a tightly packed field.
Definitely a much better run than his first one.
And across the line, let's see what he does. 56.63 compared to 57.01. So 4 tenths quicker nearly, but could perhaps have been a little quicker again. Maybe he's still feeling how this sled reacts. So much of what happens in changeable conditions is down to instinct, and if you're driving different equipment, it's like having a different hire car, everything's wrong.
Definitely in race conditions where you have more adrenaline and caffeine in your body and you go back to your normal plan, and if you're adjusting to a new sled, it's often not the same than the plan you had in your head before.
Yeah. Well, Brad Hall of Great Britain, the race leader, with 5 sleds down and 14 still to go. It's a wet and miserable Altenberg track this evening. Dominik Dvorak of the Czech Republic, fastest starter in the field, 5:22, ended up a very disappointing 14th. Dvorak really starting the series much, or the season much better than that, with 4th and 6th in Sigulda in the 2-man races.
And we didn't really see major mistakes during his first run. He just didn't carry the speed. I don't know if it's because of his material choices or he just did a lot of driving to get to the good lines, that he was slower than we expected.
He also kind of skidded it out of the start grooves and maybe clipped the wall out of our sight in the first corner. That doesn't help, but so take a look now. A 10th ahead of Brad Hall.
seen some tiny clips on the wall, which shoots the straightaway to Kreisel. Letting it wave, getting height at the red flag, going early to 11.
Only 1400s up, 107 kilometres an hour. Benny Meyer there, the fastest, at 113. There is not speed in the sled. It's not Dvorak, it's the kit.
I don't think they went for the best setup for this weather.
Look, they only just held on by 300s ahead of Brad Hall, 56.69.
He got a little bit away of him underneath the Kreisel. 11-12 wasn't great. He tapped before 13, going in late, so I had to work hard to bring it down again.
I'm sure there are lots of friends and family here. We're only a few miles from the border with the Czech Republic. Prague is almost as near as Dresden is to us here.
A lot of Czech flags there
yeah.
in the crowd. You can see a little bit of height there. And he controls it to 12, but a little bit too hard, taps on the right side and then goes late to 13, and then you just shoot up. You have to work really hard to get the line to 14.
Bounced up in the air. Brad Hall, Nick Gleeson off of there. Congratulations. Dominik Dvorak and Jakub Nosek are our race leaders. Our second Austrian sled of the competition, Markus Treichel, with Sebastian Mitterer behind him. Treichel, an ex-luger, Mitterer, a former tennis player. Obvious into ice sports there.
They had a 5:37 in the first heat. Quite in the middle of the field. 5:40, just a little bit slower. Nice line out of curve 1. And looking really smooth going into curve 3.
Brakeman Seb makes his first ever two-man World Cup start behind Markus Treichel.
Nice run through the Omega curve, controlling it really nice in curve 6. Avoiding the tap there before going into 7. And that's a great line out of curve 9.
Well, he had lost 0.2 of a second, bringing the margin down. 1:13.5, fastest of anyone into the Kreisel.
Really good looking line so far. It's a great drive.
And he's still quicker, faster than anybody so far, but a big skid. That's going to take away a 10th or maybe even 2, Anne.
And going late into curve 16, where he had to work hard again, but still found the speed.
Yeah. All right, 56.43. Maybe they had the right runners on for the conditions, because that sled was picking up speed all the way down. Fastest through every speed trap apart from at the start. All right, well, there is potentially where Benny Meyer could have been, and some as well, because there was great speed from both of the Austrian sleds.
A little bit of waving there, but he controls it really nice. And then comes out of 14 and taps the left wall, putting him into a skid, and he tries to correct it, but it's just going late to curve 15.
And that puddle down there is now a lake, isn't it? It's getting wider and deeper. Markus Treichel of Austria is our race leader. Next up, we have a tie just outside of the top 10. There are 3 sleds now covered by 300ths of a second, and they were only 300ths of a second ahead of Treichel. Sorry, Tom, didn't quite hear you. Tom Delahunty, the coach, issuing last-minute instructions to Ivo de Bruin and Janko Francic. By the way, Tom's got a new puppy at home. If anybody's got a sensible name for a female lab. Apparently 2 weeks, every suggestion has been turned down either by Tom or wife Heather. So sensible or otherwise names on a postcard, please, to T. Delahunty, Cornwall. 5:35 getaway. Good start for Ivo and Janko.
And a much better line out of curve 1.
For those of you who weren't watching earlier, Ivo's wife won her first ever World Cup medal with silver in the women's race this afternoon. So Christina Brown very happy indeed with her day.
And a really great looking run from Ivo so far. Nice control. Comes out of 9. Perfectly on the left side going into Kreisel. Controls the wave in the Kreisel. A little bit high at the red flag, but brings it out nicely.
Just as you said, control the wave. He went way up. Little skid, not too bad. Still with a 10th over Markus Treichel. He only had 300ths from the first heat. Has he got enough speed at the end? The Austrians were quick. Just.
And an ecstatic coach, Tom Delahunty.
Well, Can you call a female puppy Evo? I don't know. Maybe Alti or... Okay, no, maybe not. Okay, now I have to look for Evo's best World Cup result, don't I? Which I don't have, but this is his first ever World Cup race here, first ever race of any kind here, so that'll be...
I think this is his best two-man result. I think he got an 11th place in Koenigsee in the four-man last year, but this is definitely his best two-man result.
I think you are right.
Comes a little bit late of 9, but avoids the tap and then goes nicely to the left side going into Kreisel.
And first ever race of any kind here in Altenberg in anything, so the Dutch are happy.
He'll definitely be pleased with that. I think that's a little kiss for his girlfriend, Joella.
I thought it was for us. Come on!
I'm sure it isn't.
Canada, I'm sure it's not. Canada's Nick Poloniato and Ben. Ben leaning sideways, Coakwell, the brake man. Okay, now we get the buzzer and the 60-second countdown starts to get away. Less of a drama with the two-man. It takes a little bit more sync with the four-man sled, hence 60 seconds rather than 30 for Skeleton. And 5:25 getaway, that's not bad. 5:31 in the first heat, so they're pulling out all the stops, trying to get into that mix for the top 10.
That's a great start. A little bit of a tap going into curve 4. And a little bit too early onto curve 5, but nothing major.
Tied with Ivo de Bruin to the 100th. They were a 10th up at the start, so they've got that and a little bit more.
Nicely out of curve 9, but already a lot of the advantage has gone.
Yep. So the start advantage has gone away. He's in the red now, and this is where de Bruin was neat and tidy. Polo needs the same.
Low line through 14.
Well, the sled is hemorrhaging speed. 2800's back. This is going to cost him 3 or 4 spots. He's 4th at the line. 56.78. Well, Ivo kind of gives that what went on there shrug. And again, maybe just not quite the ideal runners for softer ice conditions. But when the field is this packed, you know, when there's not even 100th between sleds, tiny errors have a huge knock-on effect.
He didn't make a lot of mistakes, and sometimes it's just due to more driving. If you drive too hard to get to good lines, it's just slowing you down.
The thing here is we don't hear tyre squeal. If it's a racing car, you'd hear more noise from a tyre as the driver's using them more, but...
Comes out of 14 with pressure, but brings it back to the right side.
Ivo de Bruin leads from Marcus Treichel and Dominic Dvorak. 10 sleds down, 10 to go. Plenty more racing still to come here in Altenberg. Well, and we're right into this tough little group. Last 4 sleds, Dominic Dvorak up to Nick Poloniato, 700ths covering 4 sleds, and the next guys in front are just as tight. So you make one little error, maybe 2, you might get away with it. Any more than that, or 1 extra steer, and suddenly you're going to go slipping backwards past 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 sleds maybe.
Yeah, we've seen it in the women race also. A tiny mistake can just put you down the order. Showing all their sponsors.
Yeah, well, you know, just in case you're in the lead when it comes to a commercial break, you've got to have a bit of a leader's box plan.
And the Dutch guys don't have a lot of sponsors. They're doing a lot of things by themselves, and they're just working really hard to get to these results.
Well, we'll give a little shout out to Quickskin's Diana Panting and her crew, who have supplied them with some fancy-looking fast race suits. Of course, unlike swimmers, you're pretty much out of the airflow, or skeleton athletes, so no need for shark skin actual materials, but yeah, everything goes in and helps, doesn't it? As John Morgan's fond of saying, dress like a team, you perform like a team.
It's a nice saying.
Yeah, you know, if you look good, you tend to feel good. And yeah, the plastic covers are out again, aren't they, for all the fans here. Umbrellas up.
It just doesn't stop raining today.
It really hasn't. Almost from the moment I got out of bed. It wasn't raining overnight, but pretty much from breakfast time, it's set in for the day. It's almost like we're trying to play cricket or something here. Nevertheless, at least with rain, it doesn't interrupt the racing quite as much as snow does. So Hopefully we'll get this all through, and the fans may well yet see one of their local heroes or more in the medals. Race 3 of the BMW IBSF two-man bobsleigh World Cup. We're in snowy and now rainy Altenberg in Saxony. 10 down, 10 to go. Ralf Bertjens of Latvia, who made his World Cup debut in Sigulda, his home track, with Davis Springis behind him. And Bertjens, who had a couple of good runs in 7th place in Sigulda in the two-man, looking to try and seal himself into another top 10 finish.
5:30, that's 100 quicker than his first heat. And a little bit of a slide going out of curve 1. Got a little bit high too late in the curve.
This is all touch and go. He was 500s ahead of current leader Ivo de Bruin of the Netherlands from the first heat. He's added 500s more at the start, but if he breathes in the wrong place and Van Nieuwenhuis, that's all gone.
Yeah, you can see a little bit of a sideways slide out of curve 4, and it's just not the fastest line. Taps twice in the straightaway, nothing major, but just takes a little bit of the speed.
He's got decent speed, 112 compared to 113 of the fastest, but the gap is growing, 1500s back. Now they're so close at the top, he might lose 3 or 4 or more places.
Good lines in the down part of the track, but it's just too much speed has gone at the top.
He tries to do a Van Nieuwenhuis and duck his head at the line, 56.61. He's got a few extra centimetres to try and hide away there compared to Anne. But 2100s back, slips back 2 spots. So Ivo de Bruin leads from Marcus Treichel, and Ralf Bertjens lies in 3rd. So Ivo's career best in two-man is now a guaranteed top 10.
Coming out of curve 9, he's a little bit long on it, and then slides off sideways, pushing him into a tap on the right side, and then going to the left side, and then he gets the control back going into Kreisel. Going middle.
You see the ice fly off the wall. We talk about a tap, but you see the ice fly off the wall. I always say this, if you kick that wall hard enough to get ice to fly out of it, you know how much energy that takes, because you're going to break your toes. Well, next up, 9th place, 400s ahead of the last sled, and 700s ahead of Ivo de Bruin from the first heat is Yoon Jong-won of Korea.
Speed looking low, 5:32, similar to the start in the first heat.
Jin-Soo Kim, the brakeman, making only his 3rd ever World Cup start in a two-man. He's done lots more four-man racing.
Very free line in curve 4, that's going to carry the speed. Nice and controlled to 6, 7, and 8. Lower line in curve 9.
And in the red now, what speed has the Hyundai sled got here in Altenberg? De Bruin is looking at potentially 9th place here.
Taps before going into curve 11 and going into curve 13 as well.
Again, they look like such tiny errors, don't they, at speed, but it's all taking speed out of the sled.
A little bit late going into curve 16, which brought him really high.
56.58, 2/10 faster than his first heat, but Ivo de Bruin went nearly 5/10 faster than his first heat, and that in this tight packed field. If Ivo had been half a second quicker in the first heat, he'd been on the fringes of the top 6, not hanging outside the top 10. So, you know, it's so close.
It's very close. But Ivo improved in the start, and he got a much better curve 1, so that's going to help you the whole way down. Coming out of curve 9, that's as good as it gets. Just a little pressure, bringing you to the right, and then going back to the left side, going into Kreisel. Brings it down, and just steps on the right side before going into curve 11.
So Yoon Jong-won in 3rd, Marcus Treichel 2nd, Ivo de Bruin the leader. Treichel and de Bruin are separated only by 900s. You're either going to beat both of them effectively or neither. Well, let's have a look now what's going to happen for Matthias Lūķis. Latvia celebrating their centenary last November. Poland celebrating their centenary of independence this year in 2019. What can Matthias do? 11th in both races in Sigulda.
5:39, 400 slower than the first heat. Nice control through curve 1. And looking good in curve 2 as well.
Well, his advantage over Ivo de Bruin was only 800s, and he started 400 slower, so half of that immediately goes.
And he's already in the red. It's a good-looking run, but just missing the speed at the start a little bit. Holding it off curve 9, but that's shooting it.
1:12.5, very good speed.
And that's as nice as it gets out of Kreisel going into curve 11. Taps going middle to curve 13, but controlling it nicely, diving out of curve 14. A little bit of sideways action there.
5 kilometres now, slower than the Dutch sled at the bottom of the track. He's never going to catch him now and loses 5 places. Well, Ivo de Bruin might have been very happy after his wife got her silver medal, but I think this is going to take a lot of beating as his best bobsledding day ever. Your wife's on the podium and you're hanging out in the leader's box as you see all these other guys. Lācis just doesn't know where the speed went, but we saw and we heard the taps that drag it out of the sled.
Just tiny mistakes, but it's enough to kill your speed. In the Kreisel, really low second wave. That's a lot of steering, and then shooting up at the red flag. And coming out of 14, a little bit of a slide there. Nothing major, but that's just small things killing your speed.
Listen, when you're talking about hundreds, tiniest of errors make a huge difference, don't they? So Ivo de Bruin, the leader, now with 7 to go, offers his commiserations to the Poles. Next up is Alexander Bredikin of Russia, with Alexei Zaitsev behind him again. Zaitsev only an occasional two-man slider. Last World Cup two-man race for him, January 2015. He's done a lot of four-man racing since then. And Bredikin new to the World Cup in Sigulda, 5:40. That's a little slower than their first heat.
Good control in the top part of the track.
They had
a tap there.
They had a 10th in hand, gave away 500s at the start, and he's going to be in the red.
Yeah, tapping before curve 4, tapping after curve 4. And these are the tiny things that just take away your speed.
Well, this is teaching me as a fan a whole lot about this track. Is basically if you commit to any sin before turn 4, park it and go shopping. 2100s back. Again, not a bad looking run.
But the top part of this track is so vital, and you can have a clean run from that point on. It's just not having enough speed then.
Flies past our window nice and straight down at the bottom. 3 tenths back, 56.77. Ivo de Bruin, 11th equal in the first heat. Now leading with 6 to go.
He officially beat me now. I got 8th place and he's 7th place. That's the first. I'm gonna hear that tonight.
Yeah. Well, both members of the family beat you as well, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So you're really gonna hear.
Tap going into curve 4 and then he's high, has to work hard, and then he comes around being high, tapping again, going into curve 5. These tiny mistakes are all what it takes to slow you down.
And you really see it in slow-mo, that lower runner really digging into the ice as all the way to the sled, leans on that lower edge.
He had to drive it hard out of curve 9.
Well, there is Alexander Bredikin. Russians had a great day yesterday. Gold and bronze in the men's skeleton and in the women's. Not sure that's happening today. Maxim Anjanov is their last chance, with Ilya Malik behind him in 6th place after the first heat. And I'm going to say this now. They have 2300s in hand over Ivo de Bruin. That's possibly not enough.
5:41, a little bit faster than their first heat.
Well, that gives away 6 of those 2300s. And so suddenly it's looking like a tiny advantage.
And again, a tap going into curve 4, but he has better control in curve 4, so it doesn't tap going into curve 5, but a lot of the advantage has gone already.
Was 1700s up, now 400s. He will be in the red at the next clock. No, he's not. 100th in hand. Okay, and better speed than anybody apart from Marcus Treichel. But de Bruin has got the fastest speeds at the bottom of the track. Oh, and he's slipping back into the Dutchman's clutches.
But bringing back the speed now. Diving up there.
Not enough.
Going
Way
late.
shy.
And going late again.
Two more corners. It's going to be very close by 200s. He hangs on, 56.58. So Ivo de Bruin will be no worse than 7th. Maxim Antonov no worse than 6th here in Altenberg.
Only 200s out of his first top 6.
Well,
I feel sorry for my teammate, but Antonov
had
a great job.
2 5th-place finishes in Sigulda, no worse than 6th here. But let's not forget, it is still possible that there could be mistakes from the remaining sleds.
Yeah, and there you can see the little tap, but he controls it really nice in the first wave of curve 4. Dives off 14, just a little bit too hard, and then taps, skidding, trying to correct it with the runner tips.
That's where it nearly went away, but Maxim Antonov there is our race leader with 5 to go in Altenberg, race 3 of the BMW IBSF two-man bobsleigh World Cup. Ivo de Bruin of the Netherlands has been riding his luck up the order. This will be a giant killing act if Roman Heinrich and Dorian Hauteville of France can finish where they finished in Heat 1 in 5th place. Former brakeman started driving in 2015 at Roman Heinrich off his own bat in his own pocket. Now, 5th off the first heat, but slides, just, I think, avoids the wall.
5:34, which was a bit faster, but indeed he slides out of the groove.
He joked that his teammates are buying him Vaseline so he can get his backside into the sled quicker. But he's a big guy to get in. Dorian is a big sprinter from Lyon. 1300s up. So they're holding their advantage over Antonov.
A little bit early into curve 7, and you can see him bumping 7 and 8.
Oh, it's going away!
Skidding.
1:12.7, Antonov was quicker.
Controls the Kreisel really well, goes early into curve 11.
200s, but the Russian sleds are very quick at the bottom. The French sled was very quick in the first heat. He's straight, he's 200s back. What's he got? This is to finish in the top 6. If he finishes in the top 2 now, oh!
Brought it back at the bottom.
Wow! A top 5 result. I didn't even need to go and look to see how long it's been since we've had a French sled in the top 5 in a 2-man race. But I would like to say likely not this century. When I was preparing the race and looking at Roma, I didn't think I was going to have to find out when a Frenchman last finished in the top 5 of a 2-man race.
Coming out of curve 9, he's a little bit long on it, and then taps the wall, goes into his skid, taps the wall again. But his sled has been producing really great speeds, and that's what he did in the bottom.
56.37. One other sled has been as quick down the ice. You want to guess who it was? Ivo de Bruin. 56.37 for both of them. If the first heat didn't count, they would be joint leaders now. But they're not. So Roman Heinrich leads. Now Nico Walter, 1100s out of gold. Can he win here at home? One of only 2 men to win a pair of races in 2-man last year.
5:29, a little bit slower than his first start.
Okay, well, his first run wasn't necessarily quite as neat and tidy as it might have been, but I don't think anybody's was.
And this is looking really nice so far.
Well, this is to try and overhaul the Olympic and multiple world champion in 2-man and 4, by the way, Francesco Friedrich, who's next up, his hometown rival. Little tap, 3400s. It's not about whether or not he can beat Roman Heinrich, it's about whether or not he can beat Francesco Friedrich.
He's driving a lot of that curve 12.
But 3800s up, 4/10 up, 121 at the bottom. De Bruin was 124.5. Look at the comparison. Walter's right there. And 56.32. That is a good second heat from Nico Walter. He takes the lead with 3 to go. That run in the first heat would have left him 200s off the lead. Nico Walter leads, but is not yet in the medals. However, the fan club down the bottom are responding in numbers.
coming out of curve 9. And he's bringing it to the left side because you want to enter the Kreisel early, but that's just a little bit too much driving, hitting the wall, and then pointing it again to the left.
See how low he's sitting. He has to look round the peak of the cowl of the FES sled. There's Nico with Pavel Kaminski, his brakeman. Paul Krentz is his actual name. For some reason in Sigulda he was on the timing as Pavel Kaminski, and that appears to have stuck. 3 to go. Francesco Friedrich, 7 times a 2-man world champion and 3 times a 2-man junior world champion, and once an Olympic 2-man champion among all the other races he's won.
5:20,
Wow.
even improves on his impressive 5:22 start.
Fastest of the competition so far.
Not the straightest lines in the top, but avoids hitting the walls.
Has to work it hard in corner 4. 1200s up becomes 2600s up. He was only 300s ahead of Nico Walter in the first heat. He is roaring away at the start of this run.
Great speed.
Wow, this is Francesco Friedrich trying to win it. Never mind what Nico Walter did.
This is a very good looking run.
Epic stuff. 115 kilometers an hour, faster than anybody, way faster than anybody. This is probably our winning run. Francesco Friedrich crushes them with a 55.81. The first man under 56 seconds, and you saw Gert Leopold there on the right, absolutely ecstatic with that. And look at the reaction from Francesco Friedrich and Torsten Margis.
That's a half a second faster than his first run. This is great stuff.
Wow. Wow. Well, Friedrich and Margis have won so many times together.
And he really put the pressure on the next 2 sliders.
No kidding.
Out of curve 9, a little bit of pressure bringing him to the right, and then perfectly goes to the left side, going early into Kreisel. Textbook. Letting it wave, not steering too much, but just letting the waves do its thing.
There's Friedrich with a hat on, Torsten Margis. Friedrich thinks that's enough to win it. I'm not sure I disagree with him. Oskars Kibermanis and the last man on ice, Justin Cripps of Canada, are going to have to produce something very special now. Kibermanis 100th ahead of Friedrich in the first of our 2 heats. This has got to be one of the drives of his career.
5:25, faster than their first start. And you can really hear the brakeman's feet accelerating at the end, trying to give him as much exit speed as possible.
So 400s down.
Tapping going into curve 4. And sliding a little bit off curve 4, sideways to curve 5.
Their speed came below the Kreisel. The Latvian sled was quicker there than Friedrich could find, but he's given away too much, Anne, hasn't he?
It's a good-looking run, but it's not as great as Friedrich did in the previous heat.
Now the question is, can he stay in the medals, or does this open up the door for Nico Walter? Walter's 5,400s back, but Kibermanis already 3,500s back. Friedrich is away and gone. This is about staying in the medals. I'm not sure he's got enough speed at the bottom. At the line, he is second ahead of, yes, not tied with, ahead of Nico Walter. So he's guaranteed himself at least another medal after 2 silvers in Sigulda. Kibermanis will be no worse than bronze.
Apart from that little tap out of curve 9, it was a good-looking run. But what Friedrich put down was just an amazing run.
Yeah.
Here we see him going into curve 9, carrying the height, and then diving out. But you can see his runners working a little bit too hard, and then tapping.
Yeah, he was still steering off when he came into shot, whereas Friedrich's runners already straight with the line of travel. Kibermanis in the medals. Friedrich leads, 1 to go. Now, thinking back to Pyeongchang, if the Germans are going nuts when Krips comes across the line and his coach is holding up the #1 finger, he'll know what it means this time. In Pyeongchang, he had no idea. They tied for Olympic gold. He wondered why the Germans were so excited. Can he beat Friedrich here?
5:24, faster in his first heat. Oh, but sliding sideways out of curve 1.
Oh,
that's not gonna help him.
That really doesn't help. He only had 800s in hand over Francesco Friedrich. Started 400s behind. A skid has left him in the red.
And
how close?
Out of curve 3 as well.
How close is this going to be at the line? Cam Stone's in the back celebrating his 27th birthday today. They're a 10th back. Should be in the medals. Can he find the pace to catch Friedrich?
Taps before curve 11 and a little bit too much distance in curve 12 as well, which makes him tap before curve 13.
He's going to stay in the medals. Keeper Manis is nearly half a second back, but it won't be gold for Justin Krips. It'll be silver. Francesco Friedrich wins it. Justin Krips in second place, and Oskars Keeper Manis takes the bronze medal. Well, there was so little between them in the first heat, and throughout the field, we kind of expected there might be an upset. And to beat Friedrich with the run that he laid down on his home track in that second heat, you had to be absolutely superhuman.
Friedrich actually was 4,500 faster in the second run than everyone else.
Yeah, that's insane.
A little bit high in 11, and then cutting in the late height in curve 12 as well. Going high in 13. And then diving off 14. Tapping and going late to 15.
Again from Justin Krips, the Olympic champion, enough to beat everybody but another Olympic champion on his home track, and it was Francesco Friedrich and Torsten Margis paired for the first time this season. But for Friedrich in two-man, that's 3 wins with 3 different brakemen. So they've all had a go. Martin Grotkrop and Alexander, his new brakeman, in the first race of the season. Friedrich.
Having amazing start times with all 3 of them.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt that he's quite the animal on the front handles either, does it? Francesco Friedrich, Torsten Margis, the 2 fastest starts and a blazing second run to leave the rest of the field trailing in his wake. Standout results for Roman Heinrich in 5th position and Ivo de Bruin in 7th position. Not so poor for Marcus Treitler in 8th either. Some good racing here in the rain in Altenberg in Germany. And the only man not to complete the race crashed out, Johannes Lochner, on what he says is his favourite track. Well, Van Nieuwenhuis, dramatic final couple of minutes here on the ice. Friedrich just produced, if there's much closer to perfection in Altenberg, not sure we're going to see it in a while. He'll have to do that again 4 times in the World Championships.
You can see that it's his home track, and he had a little bit of trouble adjusting to the different conditions today in the first run, but then he just performed perfectly in the second run, adjusted to it perfectly, made the changes where he had to change his program, and just put down a stellar run.
It's amazing how tight it was. Top 4 covered by 1100ths of a second. Roman Heinrich in 5th position, held his spot. Ivo de Bruin would have been happy with 11th as his best ever World Cup result on a track he's never raced on before. Ended up in 7th. I mean, what a day for the de Bruin family.
I think he's quite sad now that he didn't come here sooner than this year.
Yeah, you know, never let what other people say decide your judgment on things. Altenberg's got a reputation, but then so is Lake Placid, and lots of people love Lake Placid.
So does Whistler.
They're tough drivers' tracks, but it's like Formula One. Drivers want to go to Spa precisely because it's the toughest track for driving, because you get the most reward when the penny drops, when you get it right.
And you learn so much out of driving the hard tracks.
Yeah. Well, you've got to learn a little bit from the gliders' tracks as well, because there's still a few of them on the circuit, but Altenberg is not for the gliders and the soft touch. This is one that requires millimetre precision to get the best out of it, and Francesco Friedrich found all of that today. Well, the crowd well rewarded. with Nico Walter not quite in the medals. Oscar's keeper Manis held him off. But Francesco Friedrich, the local boy from Pirna, claims his third straight gold of the season. Francesco Friedrich, 3 wins from 3 starts in the two-man bobsleigh World Cup as he claims victory here in Altenberg. Oscar's keeper Manis remains second with 2 silvers and now a bronze. Nico Walter finishing 4th here is 3rd in the standings. But moving up the order, some of those who have produced a great run here, including Ivo de Bruin there and Roman Heinrich, who finished 7th and 5th respectively in a wet race. And Anne van Nieuwenhuis, tiniest errors if you're being really picky, but Friedrich blew everybody out of the water with 1 run.
He just had a perfect second run. I really would have to look at it again very closely to catch a mistake, but he just put down a great run, letting it run where it should be, controlling it where it should be, and just smashed everyone.
Well, I'm sure, jubilation aside, he'll be able to tell you 2 or 3 places where he wasn't quite perfect. His not quite perfect is a long way ahead of everybody else here today, though, so he did respond well to the conditions in the second heat. And the man from Pirna claims victory. Silver medal to Justin Cripps and birthday boy Cam Stones there on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, Oscar's keeper Manis and Marcus Miknes on the podium again. Keeper Manis has not been off the podium all season. Cripps, 1 World Cup race, 1 medal around his neck already. And the chances are that Friedrich has a very good hope of winning another one tomorrow. For Francesco Friedrich, that is World Cup victory number 21. To go with his 7 World Championship golds, his 3 Junior World Championship golds, his 2 Olympic golds, his 2 European Championship golds, and his 15 Europa Cup wins.
It's just a very impressive resume.
Yeah.
And he's not done yet.
Yeah. No, and that is the thing about him, and John Morgan said this right from the beginning, so many successes early in his career. He has enough years left, if he has the interest and remains fit, to become probably the greatest bobsled driver of all time. Well, whatever else, Francesco Friedrich takes a lot of beating at home or away, and today he came up with the goods in a second heat that nobody could get close to. Can he do it in the 4-man? Only one way to find out. Join Anne van Nieuwenhuis, me, Martin Haven, the IBSF TV crew tomorrow morning for the action, hopefully from a clearer Altenberg in Saxony. Until then, auf Wiedersehen and goodbye.